Call me a party pooper, but I don't care about Christmas all that much. In fact, I don't really care about any holiday at all. Even on my birthday, I treat things as if it was any of the other 364 days. But Christmas just annoys me a little more than any of the other holidays. Don't get me wrong, I like the pretty lights in everyone's gardens, I like setting up a Christmas tree, but everything else just seems so forced to me. Being forced to hang out with your family you don't care about for the rest of the year, pretending life is all flowers and sunshine, having to think of what gift to buy for people that already own everything in existence. And God, don't even get me started on bowling with my family every single year. I ditched that family event 6 years ago and I have not regret that for even a single second. You know what I do like though? Video games. And McDonald's. But mostly video games. So for this year, I decided to take the best of both worlds in an attempt to make my own Christmas a little better by playing a Christmas-themed video game. This way, I can do something I love doing and get to enjoy the Christmas-themed aesthetics that I do always appreciate at the same time. After reading through 10 pages of Christmas-themed visual novels, I finally found something worth my time. Cthulhu Saves Christmas is a fun little Christmas-themed JRPG developed and released by the small indie company Zeboid Games. Zeboid Games. I don't fucking know, bro. Leave me alone. Now, the first thing that came into mind when writing this video was... really, words? Another JRPG video? I just can't help it, man. These things are way too addicting. Either way, despite being released about 9 years later, Cthulhu Saves Christmas serves as a prequel to the in 2010 released Cthulhu Saves the World. The original plan was to talk about both games in a single video, but I can confidently say I'd be too incompetent to finish the video before the end of the year. So, just a holiday prequel it is. Before even starting the game, my expectations were very low. I purchased the game for €9 during the Steam Winter Sale, and the developers don't hide there being no budget or sizable team to make this thing happen. They even briefly joke about it in the game's dialogue. This game, and every other game Zeboid Games has developed and released, truly just stem from the co-owners' love for developing video games. On their website they have this about section where they explain the reason behind teaming up to create Zeboid Games, and these little character descriptions, to stay within the video game realm, they are like the cutest thing ever, man. I'd highly advise you to head over to their website or pause the video to read for yourself, because something about these descriptions they just warm my heart. How can you not love these two for making games for the sake of making games? So, yeah, no budget, no team, just two dudes with a hobby. There was nothing big to really expect from this game, and that's what made me love the experience even more than I would have without this information. Cthulhu Saves Christmas revolves around the evildoer Cthulhu, the titular antagonist of the Cthulhu mythology created by horror author H.P. Lovecraft. The game starts off at Cthulhu's chamber in the fictional lost city with him just taking a nap, when a present suddenly appears on the altar. The present happens to be from the one and only Santa Claus. Cthulhu, being as evil as he is immediately skeptical, since Santa doesn't give presents to the bad guys. But you know, for the sake of having a game to play, he opens it anyway. Upon opening the present, Cthulhu's power is stripped away by a mysterious mist. Who would have seen that coming, am I right? Cthulhu is now big mad and he goes on a journey to murder Santa Claus pretty much. He then runs into this Elsa from Frozen lookalike called Crystal, who is the defender of the Winter Highlands, spreader of holiday joy, and most importantly, Santa Claus's granddaughter. She tells Cthulhu that Santa Claus was kidnapped by a group of baddies called the League of Christmas Evil, and that they've been sending these anti-presents to everybody, giving people the opposite of what they most desire, which is why Cthulhu lost all his power instead of the world domination he's always wanted. After some negotiation, Crystal promises Santa will give Cthulhu the power to destroy the world, and thus they team up to defeat all 7 League of Christmas Evil members and rescue Santa, so that Christmas can be saved. The story seems like it's held together with bits of tape and paper clips, but that's really what they were going for in the first place. Cthulhu Saves Christmas is a game that doesn't take itself seriously. In fact, it's pretty much the opposite. There isn't a single point in the game where the story feels coherent or even semi-serious. It's just joke after joke after joke. They even go as far as breaking the fourth wall by making Cthulhu argue with the narrator or straight up address the player. They really didn't give a shit about writing a quote-unquote good storyline. But funnily enough, this type of college student RPG maker writing turned out to be impactful in its own way. The first hour or two I just couldn't get into it at all. Did they really have to make the childish hand in water joke while Cthulhu sleeps? Why doesn't this character's personality go beyond chickens? Why can't Jack Frost say anything useful? And then there was the continuous breaking of the fourth wall with characters talking to the narrator, the player, or speaking on topics like Cthulhu games or this game getting copyright striked if they mention other franchises. It didn't just break my immersion, it absolutely shattered it. Now, what I meant when I said the story was impactful is that the longer I played, the more I came to appreciate the writing. By the time I finished my second playthrough, I got to a point where I found myself laughing at the dumb jokes and witty remarks of every single character. They truly committed to this idea of making a dialogue packed with the big funny, and managed to succeed to the extent that I changed my initial opinion. That's gotta be worth something, right? Don't get me wrong, I like storylines that don't take themselves seriously, but this was so unexpectedly over the top with every single sentence being a joke, that I just went into it with the wrong mindset. That being said, even though I came to appreciate the cleverly written jokes, I am still left wondering what this game could have been with 50% less jokes and actually tying the story together rather than just having a reindeer crash into the concrete for no reason to reveal the next destination. And the main reason for doing so is because underneath the funny business, there's actually a really cool game. Wait, what? Cthulhu Saves Christmas is a JRPG, and by just giving you that piece of information, you should already know what's coming. In order to defeat all of the Christmas League of Evil members, you'll be visiting a new area for every single boss with lots and lots of turn-based battles. Although the footage here speaks for itself, I have to emphasize that they really nailed the visuals in this game. The entire thing just looks very charming and Christmassy, without beating the Christmas theme into the ground. Not only do you visit fitting locations like the snowy land of the Swedes and the reindeer lands that really make you feel the Christmas vibe, but the hours of work and detail put into this is admirable. The sheer amount of detail on this table in Santa's workshop alone just makes me a happy individual. The candles, plates, glasses and bits and pieces of food on the floor just make me picture Santa's helpers getting ready for dinner and then getting harassed by the Christmas League of Evil. Then there's also the character portraits that look sharp as a pencil with different facial expressions and everything, and let's not glance over the fact they even put some thought into making the menu as well. Like, why does this look so organized and clean at the same time? Who gives a damn about what a menu looks like? The good looking character portraits and their levels being on display on the right, the different menu options lighting up and having an animation upon selecting them. Imagine what these dudes can come up with when they have an actual budget. And this ain't just a pretty shell with a pile of shit inside either. The gameplay itself is incredibly addicting. The Christmas League of Evil consists of 7 members, which means there's about 7 areas to explore. And what do you do inside of these areas, you might ask? Did you not pay attention? It's a goddamn JRPG. That doesn't actually have random encounters, by the way. Thank fuck. Every area has a set amount of battles to complete, with the first having 10 battles and the last couple of areas having a total of 15. And when I say set amount of battles, take that with a grain of salt. You don't actually have to battle anyone, as far as I'm concerned. I barely read this part of the tutorial because I live for these turn-based fights, but if you're an awful human being, you can choose to not battle the enemies knocking on your door with a simple click of the mouse. However, since this is a classic RPG with an experience-based level up system, there really isn't any incentive to do so. These fights give you experience with an additional experience boost upon clearing all of them. So unless you get a kick out of resetting repeatedly on every single boss fight because you're under-leveled, I doubt you'll ever use this function. But still, a neat touch to include it anyway. If you choose to engage in combat like a normal human being, you'll be experiencing the most fun part of the game. As per usual in these RPGs, you'll be fighting a maximum of 5 enemies with a party of 4 in these turn-based battles. At the start of the game it's just you and the Frozen ripoff, but throughout the game your party will expand to a maximum of 4, with the crazy chicken lady Baba Yaga, Baba Yaga, whatever, and this bearded dude called Belsnickel. I always find it very hard to explain the actual mechanics in these videos and RPGs, because I can hardly even comprehend what's happening on my screen myself. There's this giant turn graphic that shows in detail whose turn it is to attack for the next 10 turns that's very self-explanatory. And yet, I still managed to read it bottom up instead of top down for the first 2 hours. Because I am, in fact, a dumbass. Despite my lack of brain cells, I was still able to thoroughly enjoy the combat system they came up with here. Similar to the overworld and the character portraits, the visuals look rather appealing. The backgrounds fit the respective areas very well without drawing the attention away, and the different types of attacks all have a unique little animation as well. They even made separate animations for the fire and inferno attacks, which was an unnecessary but welcome detail. And then there's the enemies themselves that contain some of the big funny the game is all about. Big, small, cool, dumb, hilarious. What the fuck? The enemy designs and descriptions are worth doing the battles on their own, really. But even if the visuals and enemy descriptions had sucked massive penis, the actual combat would have more than made up for that. The turn-based combat in this game seems like a lot to digest initially, but once you get a grasp of it, it becomes a tactical spectacle that's a whole lot of fun. Each of the characters at your disposal have their own strengths and weaknesses that can truly complement each other. Cthulhu is the all-around powerhouse that hits really hard, Crystal specialized in ice type attacks but is also useful in healing and strengthening allies, Belsnickel's the all-around support player, and the chicken lady is specialized in wind attacks, and she also has these chicken abilities with its own chicken power-up bar that i.e. heals more HP upon having a higher percentage. I never really quite got the hang of this chicken power, but it's a cool thing, I suppose. Every character has a total of 8 available moves, most being a single use. Now what they've done with this design is actually something I'm a big fan of. When a character levels up and learns a new move, you won't need to delete an old move in order to replace it, like they make you do in games such as Pokemon. Instead, you'll either select it as a guaranteed move, or it will have a random chance of being one of your available moves upon starting a battle. You see, out of the 8 move slots, you'll only be able to select 4 guaranteed moves at the top. The bottom 3 moves will contain 3 of the however many moves you unlocked that you didn't select as a guaranteed starting move. The reason I like this design quite a bit is because no move will ever become useless. None of the moves will fade into obscurity. Every move will have the same chance to land in one of the 3 random slots. Sure, sometimes these moves will be the best of the rest, and sometimes they'll be some hot garbage, but isn't that what RNG is all about? I really don't care. Besides, if you feel like the random moves aren't very useful in a particular fight and your guaranteed moves are depleted, there's always the defense/recharge option on the bottom right. Not only will this recharge all the moves you previously used, but it will also reshuffle the random slots, so you won't just have the same moves for the entirety of the fight. It's a rather refreshing concept that keeps you thinking at all times. Whatever selection of moves you get definitely changes the game plan for every fight, which prevented the combat from becoming repetitive and feeling like you're pressing the same button over and over. It's not a very spectacular but important detail that I really do appreciate. As for the moves themselves, they come in lots of different shapes and forms. Single target, multiple targets, status infliction, lowering stats, aiding allies with power-ups, status cures or health. Hell, there even is this move that will make a member able to survive on negative HP for a turn, giving them the chance to heal back up to positive. My favorite moves by far are the ones that inflict this really cool, insane status effect. Either by side effect from a damaging move or just an insanity status inflicting move on its own, you can make these guys go absolutely nuts. This will make them do more damage with a trade-off of taking more damage as well, and change their weaknesses to more favorable elements. They even put in the work to change their appearance as well. They change colors and become all glowy and shit, truly reflecting a monster losing its mind. And the same goes for the enemy moves as well, although they only have access to a single move based on their class. When you're facing enemies that heal their allies or power them up every turn, or when you're facing an enemy that keeps inflicting poison status on you, your attention will immediately shift to them due to their impact on the rest of the fight, even though they're doing no direct damage. Both the enemy moves and your own limited selection of moves make for a really fun dynamic, where you need to carefully choose who to take out first with what move. There were a ton of moments where I wasn't paying full attention, and thus I ended up losing the fight because I forgot to recharge healing moves to aid my allies. Lucky for me, the coolest aspects of the combat charge on their own. With every move you make, this bar under the character will fill up. When full, you'll enter this funky little thing called Hyper Mode, which is basically a boost to whatever move you're about to use. Not only do your attacks do more damage, it'll also do cool shit like make a single target attack a multi-target attack, or make a singular defense boost a party-wide defense boost, making it very difficult to choose what to save up for the Hyper Mode perks and what to use at any given time. And then there's also the Unite moves that'll gain 10% power for every full turn cycle. Although I never really bothered to use the healing variants, seeing Cthulhu and Crazy Chicken Lady combine to do 2500 damage rather than 300, it just felt so damn good. The moves themselves are based on certain member combinations, so if i.e. Chicken Lady takes a fat L, you will not be able to use your combo move with Cthulhu again. Not having your party die is essential to success. Not just for being able to divide the incoming damage, but to increase your damage output the longer the fight goes on as well. Shit is neat. The only real criticism I got is the lack of cohesion between your moves and the enemy weaknesses. Upon selecting an enemy, you'll see what types of attacks they're weak to. Sure, the ice and fire icons are self-explanatory, but even after beating the game twice, I still have no fucking clue what this thing is supposed to be. And the reason for this is that your own attack icons look different than the weaknesses displayed upon selecting an enemy. This ice icon looks different than the enemy one, this wind icon looks nothing like the enemy one, but those aren't really an issue. How am I ever supposed to figure out what this particular weakness is if none of my moves looks like whatever this is? I mean, I was able to figure most of them out, I guess. Even though this charm move is a present for no apparent reason, I knew the heart meant an enemy was easily inflicted by this status move. But a little more cohesion would have been nice, since there isn't an explanation for these weaknesses available in-game anywhere. Funnily enough, cohesion is the most fitting term when it comes to the final thing left to talk about, since the equipment is quite literally used to tie the story, heavy quotation marks, together. The different equipment for every character comes in the form of a weapon, some armor, and an accessory. Every piece adds a number of stats, gives varying percentage boost to the different move types, and about half of them add a unique effect like 20% more ice damage or starting the battle with the negative HP ability. It's nothing super special really, but if you've seen more than one video I have ever made on any RPG, you know I got a soft spot for collecting and comparing different pieces of equipment, always searching for the most useful ones. You can find equipment in these red chests scattered around the areas, but they also just give you a number of them in between story sections. Every time you complete an area by beating a Christmas League of Evil member, the gang heads back to the main town. Before finding a clue about the whereabouts of the next member to take down that never makes sense on its own anyway, you get to spend a few days in town, doing everyday activities. Which made for some of the highlights of my experience with this game, if I'm honest. Cthulhu just does random things, like he goes to the movie to watch a horrible movie about dogs, he gets to work at the mall where he screws up every single task he gets, he heads to the beach to build a sandcastle that then gets destroyed by the waves. Shit's pretty fucking funny. They are just these static cutscenes with an occasional non-important choice that just requires you to press mouse 1, and at the end of every single one, you receive some equipment as a reward. This whole idea shouldn't be as enjoyable as it really is, but it's some absolute gold if you ask me. I'm sure there is a strategy to trying to get equipment for the members that are lacking behind, but I just picked whatever equipment had the dumbest name and hoped for a funny cutscene in order to obtain it. And the best thing honestly is that every location has multiple cutscenes attached to them, which probably took way more time for these guys to develop than it really should have. The reason for every location having multiple cutscenes is so that Cthulhu can build everlasting relationships with the location's main character. If you get through every cutscene attached to a location, you'll basically become best friends with said main character, which grants you, well, nothing, except for unique cutscenes for those you fully completed upon beating the game and saving Christmas. It's a stupid ass idea to tie the story together and give you additional equipment, but man, did it work out unexpectedly well. Like I said, reading these is some absolute gold. In a singular playthrough, you won't be able to fully complete every location, but luckily, the game's New Game Plus feature enables you to do so anyway. Not only will you be able to see all the funny cutscenes you missed, but the main story also has new and unique dialogue, new events, and even an additional difficulty on top of the basic easy, medium, and hard. Not that you really needed an additional difficulty, since I got my ass whooped on hard mode more than enough, and I'm not afraid to admit I had to downgrade to medium a few times during boss fights, but it's still a good addition for more skilled players than me, regardless. All in all, this game exceeded my €4.09 expectations by a lot. For the price of a Twitch subscription, I got tons of funny cutscenes, very appealing and Christmassy visuals, and a really cool and well thought out combat system that never even got close to being boring in the slightest. Depending on the difficulty, the game feels rather challenging as well, since any mistake in terms of move management and or recharging is instantly punished on hard mode, and losing a team member significantly hurts your chances of winning the fight. The main story took me about 7 hours to beat, but the New Game Plus feature was more than worth it to me, adding another few hours to the tally. Cthulhu Saves Christmas isn't the best game ever, nor is it even close to being the best RPG ever. But for a game that came to life on a non-existent budget and cost me a whole $4, I got 10 plus hours of pure joy out of it. You cannot convince me this wasn't a worthwhile investment. Whether you like the whole Christmas holiday or not, this game gets the Christmas vibe across in a fun and visually appealing way that doesn't overdo it at all. It made me forget about the mandatory family dinners I am probably attending as you're watching this video pop up in your sub box. God, do I hate Christmas family dinners. Cthulhu Saves Christmas is a game that was meant to be a giant meme, while still providing an excellent RPG experience. And for the price of a sandwich, that's all I could have really asked for. That being said, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to all 5 of you watching this to the end. I got some good shit coming in 2022.
I fucking hate bowling!